and you were asked to find the answers for them. I hope you have all done it, and let us just check the answers what you have written. The first question was, look at the color of the leaves. They look red, brown and yellow. Do you think these leaves can make their own food? The leaves or the colored leaves which are red, brown, yellow do contain chlorophyll. So because of the presence of the chlorophyll, photosynthesis takes place in these leaves also. It is just that the large amount of red, brown and yellow pigments cover the green color, and so the leaves look different in color. They look very colorful. But then they do have chlorophyll, and so they can prepare their own food. Now the second question was, do you think insectivorous plants are partial heterotrophs? Yes, insectivorous plants are partial heterotrophs. They have chlorophyll in them, and so they can prepare their own food. But then they do not get sufficient amount, or the required quantity of nitrogen is not available for them. So to fulfill their need of nitrogen, these plants feed on insects. The juice of insects, they feed on it. So you can call them as partial heterotrophs. Now the third question was, distinguish between saprophytes and parasitic plants. What are saprophytes? Plants which absorb nutrients from dead and decaying matter are called saprophytes. Okay? Plants which feed on dead and decaying matter, they grow only on these dead and decayed matter. Such plants are called as saprophytes. Example, fungi. Now parasites, you have learnt this earlier. Parasites do not have chlorophyll. It gets its food from the host plant on which it grows. It gets its food from the host plant on which it grows. So these plants are called parasites, and example is cuscuta. Okay? I hope all of you have checked your answers and made the required corrections. Now let us recall what you have learnt so far, and then we move ahead. In the previous lesson, you learned about nutrition in plants and how plants prepare their own food. So you also know that food is very essential for all living beings. Without food, we cannot do anything, isn't it? So you have learned that even in 6th standard, you have learned why we need food. Right, children? We have learned why do we need food? What is the necessity of having food? Why should we eat it at all? So now let us see whether you remember and you can recall why we need food. Food is essential for growth. It gives us energy to do work. It helps in repairing of worn out cells and tissues, and also it helps in building up body resistance, right? Food is essential for growth, repair of worn out cells and tissues, for building up body resistance, and food gives energy to do work. So, where do you think animals get their food from? Do animals prepare their own food? How do they get their food from? And what happens to the food eaten by these animals? So, to learn more about this, let us start the next lesson, nutrition in animals. So, what is the next lesson going to be? Nutrition in animals. Here children, in the previous lesson, you have learnt that plants prepare their own food, and so they are called autotrophs. Now how about animals? Do you think animals can prepare their own food? We haven't seen anybody preparing their own food, right? So animals, they get their food or they depend on plants and other animals for their food. They cannot prepare their own food. They depend on plants for their food and they also depend upon the other animals for their food. So they are called as heterotrophs. What are they called? They are called as heterotrophs. Now, do all animals eat the same type of food? There are animals which eat different type of food, isn't it? So, depending on the kind of food eaten by the animals, they are divided into 3 groups, right? Depending on the kind of food, what food they eat, animals are grouped into 3 groups. So, let us see what are those groups. Depending on the type of food eaten, animals are divided into 3 groups, which you have already studied earlier also. I think even in your 5th standard, 6th standard, you have studied about this, that depending upon the kind of food they eat, animals are divided into herbivores, carnivores and omnivores. It is just that you should remember that whether they are carnivores, herbivores or omnivores, animals directly or indirectly depend on plants for their food. Like for example, carnivores eat only the flesh of other animals, whereas these animals on which they feed are actually herbivores which depend on plants for their food. So carnivores indirectly depends on the plants for their food. Now, how do you think these animals take their food? So, different animals have different mode of feeding. Okay? So, all of them do not have the same type of eating their food. They have different modes of taking in their food. For example, you can see the pictures on your screen. So, you can see a snail scraping the leaf. So, the mode of eating of a snail is scraping. Then you see the hummingbird. It is sucking the nectar. So that is a sucking kind of feeding. Then you see an eagle. Eagle captures its prey and it swallows it. So what does an eagle do? It swallows its food. So you see a man. He is chewing his food. What does he do? He chews his food. A rabbit, you can see in the picture, a rabbit nibbling on its food. The mode of feeding in a rabbit is nibbling. A butterfly is sucking the nectar. And you see a cat, dog and these animals, the kind of feeding, what they are doing, what you can see in the picture is called as lapping. Okay, so different animals have different modes of feeding. So what is nutrition? The process of taking in food by an organism and its utilization by the body is called nutrition. So the food being taken in and how it is utilized by the body, the complete process is called as nutrition. This nutrition involves 5 major steps. What are they? It involves 5 major steps. What are they? Ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation and egestion. So you have 5 major steps in nutrition. They are basically ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation and egestion. Now let us learn about digestion in humans. How the food gets digested in a human being. The digestive system in humans consists of the alimentary canal and the secretory glands. So the complete digestive system in a human being consists of the alimentary canal and the digestive glands or the secretory glands. So the alimentary canal or the digestive tract, it consists of different parts. So what are they? You have the mouth or the buccal cavity, then the food pipe or the esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine ending in rectum, and the anus. All these parts put together form the alimentary canal. The secretory glands or the digestive glands which secrete digestive juices are, what are they? Salivary glands, liver, pancreas, and you also have the gastric glands. The digestive juices which are secreted by these glands help in breaking the complex food particles into simpler forms. So, breaking of the complex food particles into simpler forms is done by the digestive juices. Now, the food that we eat consists of various components. What are the different components? You have learnt it in standard 6 about components of food. So recall what you have learnt and let's see whether you remember the different components of food. I am sure you will remember. So food consists of, or the different components of food are carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins and minerals, water and roughage. So all these are the different components of food. Now amongst these components, carbohydrates, proteins and fats which are present in our food are in a very complex form and it cannot be absorbed by the body easily. So carbohydrates, proteins and fats which are a part of our food are in a complex form and it cannot be absorbed by the body easily. So what happens to this food? How can it be absorbed? What changes does the food undergo? So because it cannot be absorbed by the body, the food has to undergo different changes. The complex food particles are broken down into simpler substances so that it can be absorbed by the body. This complete process of converting the complex food particles into simpler form or simpler substances is called as digestion. What is it called? Digestion. So digestion basically involves breaking down of the complex food particles into simpler form so that it can be absorbed by the body. So this complete process takes place in our body in the digestive tract or the alimentary canal. Now what is it that helps in breaking down of these complex food particles into simpler forms? The digestive juices. The juices secreted by the various digestive glands or the secretory glands help in breaking the complex food particles into its simpler form. Is it clear, children? Are you understanding? So now let us see what happens to the food inside the mouth. Just observe the picture that is there in front of you on the screen. The food passes through a continuous canal, that is the alimentary canal. The canal begins with the buccal cavity or the mouth and ends at the anus. As I mentioned earlier, the alimentary canal consists of the mouth or the buccal cavity, food pipe or esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine ending in rectum, and the anus. The food is taken into the body through the mouth. This process is called ingestion. So what are the different parts of the mouth? What do you see inside the mouth? You can just look at the picture and tell me what are the other parts present in the mouth? You have the teeth, the tongue and the salivary glands. You do not see the salivary glands. You can only see the teeth and the tongue. But the salivary glands are present in the mouth. How can you make out the presence of salivary glands in the mouth? You think of some favorite food of yours. Maybe hot gulab jamun. Just close your eyes and think about it. And then you find water gushing into the mouth. So what is that water? The very thought of food. The salivary glands are activated and it secretes saliva. So salivary glands are present in the mouth. So what happens to the food in the mouth? When the food enters the mouth, what happens? It is all an automatic process, isn't it? The minute the food enters the mouth, the teeth starts doing its work. So what is the function of the teeth? It starts chewing the food. Isn't it? The teeth starts chewing the food. Now let us just spend a little time on the teeth that are present in our mouth. Have you realized that we have two sets of teeth? Right? When the child is very small, that is just maybe about a year or so, you find the teeth growing for the child. And by the age of 3-4 years, you find almost a beautiful pearl-like teeth in the mouth of a child. By the time the child is about 6 years old, you start finding one by one each tooth falling off. So do you think those gaps remain like that only, or they get covered up? So over a period of time, maybe after a few weeks, you find those gaps filled up with a new set of teeth. Isn't it, children? So basically in a human life, they have two sets of teeth. One is called the milk teeth, which falls off at the age of between 6 to 8 years. And then you get a permanent set of teeth which remains till the old age. Alright? Now, when you observe the teeth, do all of them look alike? No. The shape of the teeth varies and even their function varies. So if you have seen, you can also see the picture in front of you. The teeth are divided into different types and they also have different functions. They perform different functions. The front 4 teeth, they are called as the incisors. The front 4 teeth are called the incisors and they help in biting the food. What do? They help in biting the food. Then adjacent to the incisors, you have canines, which are pointed teeth. Adjacent to the incisors, you have canines, which are pointed teeth, and they help in tearing the food. What do? They help in tearing the food. Now, these canines are very prominent in carnivorous animals. They help in tearing the flesh of the animal. So, canines are very, very prominent, very strong in carnivorous animals. Then next to the canines, you have the premolars, which are 4 in number, 2 on either side. They help in grinding the food. And next to the premolars, you have 6 molars, 3 on either side. And these molars are slightly bigger than the premolars, but they also help in grinding the food. So here, children, you have different types of teeth, and the number of the teeth varies in a child and an adult. A child has about 20 teeth, whereas in an adult there are about 32 teeth in an adult. Okay, so this is about the teeth. Their main function is it helps in chewing the food, grinding the food. Now the other organ what you see in the mouth is the tongue. So when you see the tongue, how does it look like? A very thick, fleshy organ, right? It is very fleshy and thick, joined behind and free in front. The tongue is free in front and joined behind. So what is the function of the tongue? What does the tongue do? The tongue also has its own function. They perform a particular function. What is it? The minute anything falls on your tongue, you can tell what is the taste of the food, isn't it? So the tongue helps in tasting the food. So on the tongue, there are different areas which can identify different or detect different tastes. So you have a separate area for sweet and salt, sour and bitter. So these are the different tastes that a tongue can detect. Apart from tasting the food, what are the other functions of the tongue? It has a very important function, that is, mixes the food with the saliva. It mixes the food with the saliva, makes it into a paste, and slowly turns the food into small balls called the bolus. The food, once it is ground, mixed with saliva, it becomes small balls like thing called the bolus. And the tongue also helps in pushing this bolus into the esophagus or down the throat. Okay? So these are the different functions of the tongue. Now let us move on to the digestive glands that are present in the mouth. The digestive gland present in the mouth is the salivary glands. Now where are these salivary glands located? The salivary glands are located inside of the cheek, floor of the mouth and under the tongue. You find salivary glands present on 3 locations. One is inside of the cheek, floor of the mouth and under the tongue. So what does salivary glands secrete? Salivary glands secrete saliva. And this saliva contains an enzyme called amylase. So what does the saliva contain? It contains an enzyme called amylase. So what is the function of saliva in the mouth? What does it do? Let us conduct a simple activity to see the action of saliva on the food.
Now let's see what happens in the mouth. Is it only physical digestion or is there some chemical digestion also happening? So I have some poha or avlaki or flattened rice, so whatever name you call. So what I'll do is I'll just take some flattened rice and chew it, and some flattened rice I will just leave it unchewed over here. So I'm just taking some flattened rice in my mouth, chewing it, and some other I'm just leaving it over here. So while I'm chewing in my mouth, I'll also just press this little bit of flattened rice with the help of spoon, or I can do it with my hands also. So this is just some physical process which is happening over here, which I am doing. And okay, so as you can see, so I have just physically pressed some flattened rice over here with the help of my fingers. So you can see this over here, and some flattened rice, if you see over here on my right hand side, I have chewed it. I've just chewed it in my mouth, and I'll just now leave it. Maybe I'll just add a little bit of water also in both the containers to make the results visible. And what does rice contain? It's mainly starch. So we will do this starch test as you would have done last year in your grade 6. to do starch test, all you have to do is to add some iodine, right? So I'll just add a drop of iodine in both the containers and let's see what happens. Okay, so I'll first take the unchewed one. I just add one drop of iodine, and as you see, it just turns dark blue purple. Now let's repeat the same process in the chewed one, and as you see, it doesn't turn as dark. I took almost the same quantity, so the process of chemical digestion has also started in the stomach, and if you see carefully, it is getting lighter and lighter because the starch which is there in rice has been digested by the enzyme amylase which is present in your mouth. So along with physical digestion, in mouth you also have some chemical digestion going on.
Did you all observe the experiment, children? What did you observe? I hope each one of you have observed the experiment carefully. And let us see what you have observed now. What did we see? We saw that when the chewed avlakki was put in one container and an unchewed one was put in the other one. So a drop of iodine solution was put in both the containers. The one which was not chewed immediately turned into purplish, blackish purple color. The other one which contained chewed avlakki also turned, but then the color was lighter, right? The color was light. Then the whole thing, both the containers were kept for about 5 minutes. So once they were kept for 5 minutes, what did you see? What did you observe then? The container containing unchewed avlakki remained unchanged. Even after 5 minutes, the color was like that only, dark blue. That is basically when you add iodine to a food containing starch, it turns into that color. Okay? So, the other container containing chewed one, which was chewed in the mouth and put in it. So after 5 minutes, it totally became colorless. The blue color, even the light blue darkish color which was there, that also disappeared. So this above experiment what was conducted shows that digestion starts in the mouth itself. The digestive juice, that is saliva, acts on the food and converts starch into sugar. Because the starch is already converted into sugar, that means the starch is not there. So the color also disappeared. Alright. So here we observe and learn that digestion starts in the mouth itself, and the digestive juice, that is saliva, secreted in the mouth, converts starch into sugar. Are you clear, children? Have you all understood this? Thank you. We stop today's lesson here. That is, we stop at the digestion in the mouth. And in the next class, we will continue with this lesson. Now, before that, I would like to recall on all the points that we discussed today. The important points what we discussed today. The first point is nutrition involves ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation and digestion. Second point, the breaking down of complex components of food into simpler substances is called digestion. Third point is the human digestive system consists of the alimentary canal and the secretory glands. The fourth point, the alimentary canal consists of buccal cavity, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine ending in rectum and anus. Fifth point, the digestive glands which secrete the digestive juices are salivary glands, liver and pancreas. Then the sixth point, the food entering the body through the mouth is called ingestion. Seventh point, the buccal cavity consists of teeth, tongue and salivary glands. The next point, the salivary glands secrete saliva. Saliva converts starch into sugar and digestion starts in the mouth itself. Okay. So these are the main points what we learned today. And children, I hope you have understood whatever is being taught. I would like you to go through the video once again so that you can understand the lesson better. After that, based on today's lesson, whatever you have learned, there are a few questions I want you to answer as homework so that we can check with the answers next class. Okay? We can discuss the answers in the next class when you finish your assignment and keep it ready. First question is, what is digestion? Second one, name the major steps involved in nutrition. Name the parts of the alimentary canal. Name the digestive juice secreted in the mouth. What is the function of the teeth? What is the function of the tongue? And what is the function of saliva? What does saliva do? Okay? So complete your work and we will discuss the answers in the next class. Thank you, children.